Some of the smartest people I know have good jobs, solid degrees, and steady paychecks, yet they are completely broke. And the scary part, it's not because they're lazy, it's not because they earn too little, it's because they are doing exactly what society told them to do. If you have a job and you still feel like money disappears every month, this video might explain your entire financial life. Now let's look at this. High income is not equals to wealth. If you're a high earner, doesn't necessarily mean that you'll be wealthy. I've seen a lot of people who actually earn a lot of money and still end up being broke. Now, the reason is this. There's something called the high earner fallacy, where they say income is what you earn, wealth is what you keep. Most smart people focus 100% on the paycheck and 0% on the net worth. So it's not necessarily about how much you earn per month. You can easily be raking up about $1,000, $500, $2,000 every single month. Or if you're in Nigeria, you're earning up to 1 million naira every single month. And you think that you are making a lot of money. But what happens is that at the end of the year, it feels like you're still in the same rat race and your income is not even enough to take care of your expenses. Talk more about having enough income to invest. So you have to be very careful. Your high income is not equals to wealth. I'm going to see why that is in the next slide. Now, there's something called the job trap. If you're a salary earner, or maybe you've been earning money from something that pays you every single month, which is what a typical salary looks like, you would have you this might actually be familiar to you. The job trap. Now look at the typical person behind the jail in a corporate workspace. Now there's something called golden handcuffs. So jobs provide survival, not freedom. You are trading 100% of your life for a fixed monthly ceiling. Now, let me strike a balance here. The problem is not that you are working a job or you're running a 9 to 5, or being a 9 to 5 is a bad thing. No. The problem is you are only surviving on the income from your 9 to 5. And why is that survival and not freedom? If something happens to your job today or tomorrow, automatically you don't have any backup system. You immediately and instantly get broke. Not because you were not earning money before, but because you were focused on survival money, not freedom money. So here's a quick tip for people who are probably salary earners. I want to, break out of that. Plan for the next 5 years. Even if you're on a job and you're earning income, at least take out a certain percentage of your money every single month and invest, or even save if you know you're not ready for investing yet, because it takes, I won't lie to you, it actually takes a certain amount of money for you to get invested. The reason is sometimes investments are not things you just put your money today and get rich the next day. And you have to be very careful with the kind of money you're using to invest, because if you are somebody who easily pulls out money, you wouldn't see the long-term growth and value that comes from compounding. And that is the whole essence of the investing. So you want to try as much as possible, even if you're still in survival mode, to build your freedom every single day, month by month, paycheck after paycheck. The next on the slide is something I tagged. Next on the slide is something I tagged. Earn more, spend more. Yeah. So this is another one that people who earn money might be very, very familiar with. Entry level says cheap rent, old car. Promotion says better house, new SUV. And the executive says mansion, sports car. Now, there is something called lifestyle inflation, and this is the breakdown. So there's the entry level guy, there's the middle level guy, which is the one who just got promoted, and there's the executive who is maybe a CEO, founder, or you buying a mansion, you're buying a sports car. So for a lot of people, this happens, and this is what literally keeps you in the rat race. When you begin to earn more money, the first instance is, oh, you need to upgrade your lifestyle, you need to buy new stuff. I'm not saying any of that is wrong, but you should be careful with lifestyle inflation, because the richer you get, the more expensive your broke becomes. I will explain that. So take a typical entry level guy who just course. You know, and is trying just got a first job, and maybe the first job pays you about let's say 400,000, 300,000 naira every month, which is typical for roles in Nigeria. Go ahead and get a cheap rent, an old car. Understandable. When you get set, you have to start looking at things like house, of course, a new SUV, and then you get to the executive. Now, for most people, this is the typical ladder. What if I tell you that it doesn't always have to be straightforward like this? You have to be really careful with lifestyle inflation. So you don't increase your expenses based on your level of option alone or your level of money. So any more money, spend more money. It's not always. A lot of times you have to delay gratification for certain things to make sense for you. I'll give a typical example. I earned my first $7,000 at 24, and at that age, a lot of people would say, "Oh, I just finished school. You know, you're a young graduate, young person just finished school and recent graduate." I could have easily said, "Oh, about just half of that money can get me at least a reasonable car." I could have said, "Oh, let me just go get a car, let me get a vehicle." But I didn't do that. I took more than half of that money, invested it. And right now, that compounding is working for me every single day. As simple as that. The reason is, instead of taking that $7,000 to go buy a car, or even half or more than half of that money, I could easily invest that money. And then when I'm ready to buy the car, what will buy me the car is the grandchild of my money, of that $7,000. That's how compounding actually works. So let's say I invest the money and every single year I get paid a certain percentage. It will get to a point where that percentage that I invested is what I will eventually use to buy a car. And I won't sweat it because at that point, I will not be depending on all the money I have to buy a car. And that is something you call delay gratification. Trust me, this works like magic. But the problem is that for many people, this is something that is very difficult because it takes a lot of discipline to actually do. If you want to make another video on how to delay gratification and give you like few steps to delay gratification, let me know in the comment section. Type delay in the comment section and I'll see how to go about that. Now, the next thing is something I typed: buy now, regret later. Emotional spending. This is another trap that a lot of smart people fall in. And that's where you see that you're smart, you're intelligent, and it seems like you're still broke. Emotional spending. So smart people are experts at justifying bad decisions with high level logic. You see a typical Sandra who lives in Lekki, and one of the biggest states in Lekki phase one or Lekki phase two, with a 400, 500K salary, living in Lekki phase two, driving a car that is way above her yearly income. And then what happens is that, oh, she begins to tell herself that, oh, I'm paying in part, so I can afford the car because I just pay every month for the next 5 years, and I'll easily afford the car. That is emotional spending. I'm not saying that the car might not be important to you at that point, but it's just something you can afford. Let's even look at things you can even afford that are still emotional spending. So a lot of smart people are really experts at justifying bad decisions. For instance, you buy every single thing um, that you're craving. You walk into a typical mall and initially you had a list and something to buy. All of a sudden you bought times two or times three of that thing of your entire list. If you look at it closely, you see that if you do this consistently, what will happen is you begin to have leaking pockets. So you're making a lot of money, you're smart, you're intelligent, but it just seems like you can't get out of the rat race of being broke. This is where a lot of them usually say things like, I work hard, I deserve this luxury watch. I mean, who gives themselves a luxury watch when you're earning a salary of 500,000 naira? It makes no sense. But that's what emotional spending does. It's one of the loopholes that a lot of people fall into. And then we have, you're smart, but in debt. You're smart, but in debt. And this is something I titled the wealth anchor. So this is how it works. Debt is spending your future earnings today. Every dollar spent on interest is a dollar that cannot work for you. Every naira spent on interest is a naira that cannot work for you. So this is where the typical um, loan apps come in. You understand? The typical loan apps that tell you, oh, you need to take this loan and get this certain percentage on your money, and you know that you don't actually need that loan, but because you just feel like, oh, it's a loan, I can always pay back. What happens is that the same way money compounds, the same way your income, your invested cash compounds and gives you return, is the same way debt also compounds. But instead of giving you a return, it takes money from you. So there's something called bad debt and negative debt, because it begins to compound your interest. Now, the interest you're going to pay, not the interest they're going to pay you. So every naira spent on interest is a naira that cannot work for you. Okay? Now, next, we have this: who did not teach you money? So, typical for everybody, you begin to see how there's something called the education gap, where academic brilliance does not equal financial literacy. So, for most people who are smart and intelligent and went to school, you get good grades, the major reason is that school doesn't necessarily teach you money. So they don't teach you things like, taxes. They don't teach you things like investment. You just get, okay, focus on your grades, get a 4.0, work on a 5.0 if it's on a 5.0 skill. So that's why you see most 4.0 students end up working for 2.0 students who understand how money flows. I'm not saying grades are not important. I graduated with very, very good results above a 4.0. But the point I'm trying to make is academic brilliance does not equal financial literacy. So sometimes you have to focus more on those things that school didn't teach you after school in order to bridge that gap. Because school normally, typically, is not supposed to be just your grades. Is the reason it's called education. But what happens is that because of the curriculum and the way things are structured, a lot of times it ends up being that way. Do you understand? So you have to focus on, to bridge that gap, you have to focus on some of those things that you didn't learn in school. And that is where financial literacy comes in. Next, I want to teach you a simple formula here. It's something I titled the wealth formula. It's income minus expenses times time equals wealth. Very, very, very simple. Let's say you earn income like 500,000 naira a year, a month, and expense of 100,000 naira. 500,000 naira minus 400,000 minus 100,000 naira gives you 400,000. Multiply it by 2 years, 3 years, gives you total amount of income, pure profits you have in a fixed period of time. So wealth is built by systems, not by IQ. Your income minus your expenses multiplied by time over and over again. So, of course, with the way the formula is, you want to make sure that the income part is always the larger part. So, of course, if the larger number is subtracted by a smaller number, there will always be a remain. There will always be something to give in positive. So you want to ensure that that bracket is always in positive and multiply it by time. That is how wealth is easily built. Wealth is built by systems, not IQ. It's not about how intelligent you are or the number, how high your intelligence quotient is. Systems, not IQ. So let's look at this slide also. Something like the smart shifts. A typical spender is one who buys liabilities, only liabilities. A saver loses to inflation, but an investor buys assets. Now, somebody, what are you talking about? People investing in Bitcoin, investing, because those are mostly the people who answer the name investor. You don't have to answer the name investor. In fact, nobody even needs to know how much you have in your investment portfolio, because the reason you're investing in the first place is for you to be able to get to financial freedom. So the shift is this: a typical spender is one who buys liabilities. So you need to know where you fall in. Are you the one who only buys liabilities, things that take money away from you? Are you just save and save with no reason for saving? Your money keeps being lost to inflation, because typical savings accounts in Nigeria, for instance, won't give you more than inflation. As at December last year, inflation rate was about 15%. And if you check most of the saving accounts, there are a lot of them not up to 15, except you are using a high savings account, which some apps help you to do. I'll put a link in the description if you're interested in that. You need to understand the only way to actually buy assets and grow your money is by investing. So you need to learn how to fix habits. Fix habits, not IQ. Put that in the comment. Wealth is built by discipline. You can have a master's degree, have a PhD, and all that. But if you've not built discipline, no matter the degrees that you have, you would always fall back into this rat race. I hope you learned something from this video. And as usual, if you were to like the video, subscribe to this channel, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye for now.